Welcome aboard all. This week's special guest is Brad Anderson, who is one of the awesome foursome of the NMRA-X phenomena. We chat all things NMRAx and remote ops, which I believe is the most exciting thing since DCC, I should say. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Daz from Model Railroad Techniques. Our YouTube channel produces video podcasts showcasing modelers from all around the world, and also a few how-to videos in there for a good mix. If you know of a model that might fit the bill, email below, reach out to me, and I would love to have a chat to them. Don't forget to subscribe and like to keep the content rolling. I have a Patreon page. Every little bit counts, so I thank you for those people who have already reached out. So without further ado, let's get started. And a little public service announcement here. Make sure you vote one for Gordy Robinson in the upcoming NMRA elections. I believe personally he has brought this hobby into the 21st century with such initiatives as the NMRA-X virtual clinics and the like, so make sure you vote for Gordy. Well, welcome aboard, Brad Anderson. Thanks for taking time away from the family this evening to talk to me at Model Railroad Techniques.
No problems, Daz. It's good to be here.
It's been a little while. Obviously, we've been sort of missing each other's schedule, your NMRAx schedule and my upload schedule, so we've finally got there. As I said before, it's just a little bit strange, two Australians talking to each other. Normally I'm talking to either a Scotsman or an American voice.
Yeah, well, I'm likewise. We're always explaining what goes on down here in Australia to them.
That's right. And it's nice to talk to someone. We don't have to talk upside down, as I keep saying, so as they keep telling me. So, all right, you can be found. You've got a few different Facebook pages, and I'll put all the links below to all these. So Facebook, Model Railroad Down Under. You've also got a YouTube channel, Brad Anderson Model Railroading, and also you're an administrator for and an owner of the Facebook page Remote Model Rail. So let me start that again, Remote Model Rail Operations, which is, I definitely want to get into that. That's the way of the future, I think, that, mate. So that's good. So I always like to get to sort of know where people come from, what their hobby and their history and their hobby is. So can you let us sort of give us a bit of an insight of when you started and how you started and where you're going, I suppose?
Okay, well, I guess it's I'm like the average child. My father bought it in one Christmas, I believe, actually, and got me into some N-scale stuff and sort of progressed from there. I personally now look back and think he used that as an excuse for us, just so he could get into it. But yeah, I was I might have been 7 or 8, and yeah, I was brought into the hobby. Usual thing, progressed through with just running trains, hanging around with Dad at the club, things like that. Hit 16, girls, football, cars, all the above. Took me out of the hobby for sort of 5-10 years. And then, I had a son of my own, and lo and behold, I used him as an excuse to get himself back into it. So that's where
great.
It's sort of grown and back into it.
Sounds like a very similar story to me. So my lad is just slowly starting, he's 9, he's just slowly starting to get into it a little bit. He likes running the trains. He doesn't like the monotony of building it, but definitely likes getting out there and running them, which is great. So you mentioned club. Tell us a little bit about your club and where it's located and what you're about.
Okay, well, I'm based up in northern New South Wales, about an hour south of the Gold Coast. I'm a member of the Northern Rivers Model Railroaders. They've been around for probably 35 years. My father's been part of that club for a good 25 to 30 of those years.
Nice.
So I stand and I hold the secretary position there. I was a former vice president for a few years. We do the show circuit in Queensland, so southeast corner, so Brisbane, Gold Coast, Toowoomba.
Yeah, sure.
Just a small club, sort of only half a dozen members, maybe up to 10 at the max. So it's a nice little club.
So you have a like a show layout, that's a modular type layout that you can sort of take around to the different exhibitions, I suppose, when they're running.
We've got a couple. There's a couple of N-scale layouts and one HO. Modular little thing. Usually there's only a group of 2 or 3 of us can get away. So, nice little setup.
Yeah, sweet. How are you sort of finding that, obviously, with the COVID lockdown? Obviously, you're not just recently been able to go over the border, I'm assuming. So,
yeah, correct. So about 3-4 weeks ago was my first train event that I went to for the year. I actually went to a Div 1 meeting up in the back of Bow Desert, which was great for a change. But yeah, having a few withdrawals due to the COVID thing.
Yeah, that's right. And we've got nothing like our poor souls and friends in the United States, that's for sure. So,
No, exactly.
Now, your layout, we've got some lovely photos that are flicking through here in the background. Can you tell us a little about your layout, sort of the size of it, what railroads you're sort of modelling, the era, and that type of thing?
Okay, so this layout's probably what I'd say is my first real layout. I've ran my fingers through a few different module ideas and concepts like that over the last 10 years. But this is taking up a single car garage. It's HO, completely freelance, and it's going to be a stepping stone. I know this is going to be a chainsaw layout for a sort of 5-year period. And yeah, I just want to use this to learn some new techniques and new technologies that are out there and try to implement them to plan for a new layout. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So what sort of size we looking at in your layout? Obviously you said single car garage, which I know what that sort of size is to me, but sort of for our American European friends out there.
Looking around that 10 by 20.
10 by 20
it's a dual level, dual deck. It's got a helix. And yeah, I've got a 20-foot yard that runs down over the 2-car garages at the back here. So it's what I'd say is an okay size for us guys over here in Australia.
Yeah, nice. So what sort of motive power are you running and what sort of era, I suppose, you're running?
Era, we're looking sort of that mid-90s through to 2000s, fairly modern stuff really, North American outline. I've sort of got a soft spot for it with the occasional excursion steam train. I'm not a huge steam fanatic, but there's a few of those bigger steam locos that I've still got a soft spot for.
Yeah, nice. So, obviously, full DCC. Knowing one of your things you love is the electronic side of things. So, what are you running there?
Definitely full DCC. What I'm running is a Raspberry Pi with a Sprog. That's my command station.
Yep.
I have a few Tam Valley boosters and stuff like that to up the amperage. And I will also be putting Digitrax in there for me block detection and signaling.
Yeah, nice. So for those people that don't maybe not know the Raspberry Pi side of things, is that the Martin Jenkins one that's getting around, or very similar to what he's developed, or developing, I should say?
Well, because Martin's a great guy and everything, and likes to put these together for the fun of it, I think. It's one of his pies. Yeah, they work great. I can't complain. And also, back when I purchased this, I was, and the club is, a lens system sort of club. But lens hasn't really done too much in the last 5-10 years in developing stuff. So we're looking at buying throttles, and Martin said, hey, why don't you use this on a smartphone? And that's where it started. Yeah,
nice. So that's obviously the Pi via the JMRI then, is that what you're looking at doing, or you have done?
Yeah, correct.
Say? Yeah.
That's what I have done, yeah.
Yeah, nice. So what are the plans for the future? You sort of said you want to get into Digitrax detection, so you're looking at the LocoNet bus side of things.
So that's definitely on the cards now. In construction of the layout, I'm only up to level 1 track works down and started some scenery. I'm in the process pretty much in the last week or two, starting the helix up to level 2. So I'm very early on. I haven't gone down any of the detection side of things yet, but I have started to plan that, Digitrax is the way forward for that.
Yeah, sure. So you're going to look at, obviously, with the detection, obviously comes along with that, with the signalling side of things. So are you looking at what type of signalling system you're sort of looking at in with JMRI, I'm assuming, with that, will integrate into that?
Yeah, so it'll all be definitely integrated in with JMRI, and another mate that I've made in the last few months, Speed over in Texas, is introduced me to MQTT. So that there's something that I'm interested in to dabble in and see how that can fit in there with the Digitrax stuff for the signaling side of things.
Yeah, okay. What's MQTT? I think I've heard of that.
It's a protocol for sending information. So it's Speed introduced it to me as email. So
Right.
A client sends out emails, and if you want to listen in on that and get that information, you can. If you don't, you don't. And that's how he
Right.
interpreted it to me. Other than that, other than seeing what he's done,
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
right across it at this stage.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
something that I've only been dabbling around with for the last sort of month.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, but that's something that's really interesting. It's all done via Wi-Fi, so no wires coming back to a
Interesting.
control panel or anything like that. So that's what's really got me interested into that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I might look into that myself. So it's almost like a wireless version of LCC, then, by what you're sort of saying.
Oh,
Yeah,
exactly right.
just a different protocol. So
Correct.
yeah, cool. So what's the favourite thing you like doing on the layout, or you're a bit like me that depending on where your mood takes you?
Yeah, honestly, I've thought I've always been into the electronic side of things, and it's kind of been true to the stage of that until I sort of took 6 months ago, took a bit of time off, got into this online stuff, and then got into the scenery.
Yeah,
And that's something that's really taken me off, as you can see in the photos going past, this rock work,
yeah, it's
backdrops
beautiful.
and things like that. Like I couldn't draw a stick man to save myself, and I think the backdrops have turned out actually not too
They
bad.
are very nice, and that rock work is like that really beautiful. That's so. How whilst you're on that, we've got those photos up there. How are you looking at doing that? Is it like a leopard spotting sort of wash type
Yeah,
technique you're using
so
there? Or?
that's just literally plaster plonked on, carved out with an X-Acto knife and box knife and stuff like that, and then leopard spotted on and actually dusted over with some weathering powders. Adam
Nice.
Whiskey put me onto that technique, and it really finished it off.
Yeah, yeah. I think scenery is one of those things that you can look underneath the board and people go, oh yeah, you got thousands of wires going everywhere like some people. But you look at the scenery, and I think that's just one thing I think everyone sort of relates with, I suppose. You can sort of see your progress very, very quickly with scenery, I think. So even if you just like your backdrops and all that, you just get some basic landforms in, it sort of starts to come together very quickly. That's sort of what I've sort of been finding, which is great. So
Yeah, definitely. And I like to keep it simple. Like those backdrops are painted with 2 colours of paint, and that's it. I'm not very artistic at all, so anything simple I like.
yeah, nice. Well, you've done a great job with them. I'll give you that. I thought when I first saw him, I'm thinking, oh, there's obviously some sort of art background there. But if you're telling me that, quite the opposite by the looks of it. So
I'm a builder by trade, so yeah, definitely not.
That's great. That's great. So operations, prototypical type operations on the layout, doing or planning on doing, or
Look, I'm planning on it. It's not a very big layout. It's pretty much loop to loop, 2 reverse loops, upper and lower. The lower is going to be fairly heavily industry switching. The upper is pretty much rural setting, 1 or 2 switching locations, passing siding.
yeah, nice.
So yeah, I'm trying to accommodate the ability to have a fairly prototypical operation for 1 operator, or up to 6 here in location, or possibly 10 total. So that's where the yard then comes into play.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So initially, when I was looking into what I was going to sort of things I'm going to ask you, this didn't even come up until I think the other day you started putting some photos up of your 3D printing. You just recently got yourself a Anycubic Photon Mono X, I think.
Correct.
I'm literally waiting for mine to come, so hence why I'm sort of asking a few questions about that. So why did you choose this model? I suppose the model of printer.
Okay, well, 3D printing's nothing new to me. I've had a filament printer now for 2-3 years. On the back of that, I'm now working in a joinery shop as a CNC technician, and I've been doing that now for 10 odd years. So the CNC background sort of drew me into that technology.
Sure.
And the Anycubic thing, I've always looked at the resins. I've always been put off about the build volumes of some of them, especially in the lower end hobbyist stuff. Anycubic coming out with this, which has like a 6-litre volume, and I jumped all over it. It's probably the best purchase that I think I've made all year.
Yeah, nice. So I see you got the cleaning station, UV station as well. So how are you finding that? Because that's something I'm looking at if I'm going to pony up some money to be my next buy with it, I reckon. So,
tell you the truth, it's easily the best investment that you could ever do when you're resin printing. I've now printed probably 300 or 400 mils worth of resin, and I don't think I've had resin over my gloves at all. I've had a few drops onto the desk, and other than that, it's all straight into the wash station, wash the part off, and then I can handle it. So yeah, it's really makes life easy for that workflow.
Yeah, nice. So how are you finding? You're probably like me. You watch lots of YouTube to see what people are saying about these different things, and some saying that the smell of the resin when you're going through it, when it's actually doing its build. Some saying you can't smell it. Others saying it's really putrid. What are you sort of finding, and any sort of advice there for an amateur like me?
Okay,
or
so
others?
I'm using the Anycubic resin at the moment, and tell you the truth, I'm using methylated spirits in my wash station, just based on the IPA's extremely hard to get and expensive here at the moment. When I started printing, I didn't really notice anything, and as soon as I opened that container of methylated spirits, it's what knocks you around more than the actual resin. I don't have a problem with the resin.
Yeah, nice. So you said you had a filament, obviously very different way they do the print. How are you sort of finding the quality of each? So whether this is an apples and oranges scenario, I'm not sure, but so if you were to print something very similar, would they be similar quality or similar resolution, I suppose is the word? Or
chalk and cheese. Realistically, if you can get a successful print out of a filament down to 0.2 of a millimeter. I'm printing out of this resin printer at the moment down to 0.01 of a millimeter. So it's definitely chalk and cheese. I do think that they both have their own place, though, in the modelling world. For us guys, the filament stuff's great I make a lot of brackets to hold tablets and stuff on the front of the layout. Quick prototyping just to see how things will work. It's a lot cheaper, a lot easier to problem solve, I feel, and then I can flick them over into the resin side of things. So having the filament printer for 3 years means that I've got a vast build-up of models already made that I can then flick over.
Yep. So with your printing, are you doing sort of Tinkercad, doing your own CAD design to start with, or are you going on a Thingiverse and those types of websites and just dragging off what other people have graciously put out there for us?
Well, I think like anyone with a 3D printer, first thing is you open the box and you're straight onto Thingiverse and you're downloading anything that's train related that you can get your hands on. But based on the CNC background for the last 10 years, I'm into Fusion 360. I use it at work. I know it inside out. So I can pretty much model anything up in a really short time frame and create my own model, 3D model from there. I was actually in one of the online conventions and Gordy and Speed said, it'd be good to have our logo across a throttle holder, and 45 minutes later at the end of the clinic, I'm sending them a link going, here you go, who wants to print it?
Yeah, that's nice. So no, that's great. Obviously, Marty, you're going to do a whole lot of prints for him because he's sort of already asked you very graciously when you're printing stuff for me. So
yeah, of course. That man knows how to jump down rabbit holes and push her around. So I'm going to definitely work on a barter system. He's got some really crazy RC cars that I'm really interested in getting, but I'm not sure if I can build. So you never know what might happen in that space.
Yeah. And we're all same part of the world as well, which is great. So it'd be good to move forward with definitely something like that. So yeah, as I said, I've already started downloading. I reckon I got 20 things to print, and I haven't even got the printer yet. So I'm predominantly a European modeler. I don't know if you knew that, but so I found a very nice dual arm semaphore, like a European semaphore, that sort of operates by hand. But I'm going to try to obviously get some miniature servos and try to work out how I'm going to do that, because those semaphores with Weissman, which is the other brand I've got, are getting up to nearly $180 Australian per signal. That's just crazy. So if I can get something that's half as nice as that, I'll be pretty happy, I think. So
I think you'll be happy with it.
yeah, I think so. So I've already spoken to the bloke out of, I think he's in Austria. So he's a good lad. So very good. Probably the thing that I came across you in, NMRA-X, is obviously you're very big in this space, I suppose. You seem to help out a lot with Gordy and Marty and crew, and obviously he speaks highly. This is Gordy, when I spoke to him, speaks quite highly of you, and you're helping him out with this. So obviously you're a member of the NMRA. That would be the first thing I ask, or?
Yeah, definitely. Our club's a 100% club here in Australia, so it's pretty much a given that I'm a member. As for Team X, as I like to call them, I was kind of thrown in the deep end. Martin got me involved. Well, Martin got me online, tell you the truth. As you know, I'm kind of out in the sticks here in Australia a little. So I got online with Martin a few nights, and he kind of got addictive, and then Gordy got involved, and Gordy had this cool idea of a virtual convention, and I just thought that was the best thing possible, not only based on the times and the year that we've had, but I think for the younger generation to try to get them involved. And I was all over the idea. I am not very social person. 6 months ago or 9 months ago when it all started, I kind of like to keep to myself, and lo and behold, the man up on the Gold Coast, he threw me in the deep end, and I got into hosting, and it kind of got a buzz out of it, and here I am. I'm in the core group of 4 or 5 people, and loving it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm a little bit the same. I live out in the boondocks in sort of south of Adelaide, a few hours from Adelaide, or hour from Adelaide, I suppose. I'm a bit the same, sort of bit of the lone wolf modeler for so long, until I sort of started getting into this type of thing and putting it out there, and quite enjoyed it. I've yet to sort of take the plunge into the NMRA, I should say. I'm still trying to work out moving forward. I think they've got a division here in Adelaide. I need to make contact with them, I think. So where do you think moving forward the EX team, we'll call it, so it's a bit easier for me to say. Where do you think it's going, I suppose, is the next thing? Because it seems to be four or five guys doing all the sort of the hard yards, organising all these clinics in the background, and obviously the NMRA, obviously, absolutely, what would you say? Getting all not the kudos out of it. It's not quite the right phrase, but getting a lot of mileage out of the great work you guys are doing.
Look, I think it's got to be taken as a two-way street. Yeah, they're getting a lot of mileage out of us, but they put a good crew together, so to speak. There's 4 or 5 of us. Yeah, we're probably the backbone of it, but the social media team, they do a great job promoting behind the scenes. We've got quite a few hosts that have now come on board and helped host. Plus, there's something like 120 clinicians. Nice. So it's all those sort of things that go to make this really well. And you also got to remember the association is really the backbone of the hobby. Without them, there's no standard. We wouldn't have Digitrax being able to talk to a Sprog or JMRI or any of those sort of things that communicate flawlessly without a lot of input. So I think from what they do, they've got their own thing, and what we offer into it's just helping build the model community.
Definitely, and it's a great thing that you're doing. So I listened to AML would have been probably 18 months ago, maybe even 2 years, when Gordy was trying to get off the ground. What did he call it? The virtual division, I think it was, back in the day. So, and obviously that got squashed. I think it's quite interesting. We now move forward. This is basically pretty well what he's done. Just called it something a little bit different, but obviously a lot more virtual clinic based, I suppose, in regards to that. But so, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't see it as a standalone division. I see it as a department that helps current divisions implement this sort of technology and process to help bring new members in and help offer things to their current members. Like I said, I'm out in the boondocks. My closest true division that I fit into is like 2.5 hours south. And I just don't find the time to venture down there. Like I said, we're doing all the show circuit in Queensland. I go to Div 1, but still it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas if either of those divisions come online and offer it, it just helps the current members to get that little bit extra for their membership.
Yeah. No, that's that's a very good way of putting it. Actually, it's another arm to help the division move forward. I suppose that's a really good way of putting it. So, so obviously you're going to continue on with the X program as best you can. What do you want to do? What other ideas do you think you've got for it?
Look, me personally, I'm kind of going with the flow. I enjoy doing it, but watch this space. We have talked about a few new products or new shows to put together.
Yeah.
I think we're just trying to ride out this year and see how we're all coming out for next year, and then we can make a plan forward. But definitely, we've got one next weekend, which is the run-of-the-mill sort of thing. That's getting back into it after a few weeks off for us guys.
Yeah.
And then, Christmas. We'll hopefully do one between Christmas and New Year's, and we'll put something new in. You also got to remember, like I said, we've helped, or Gordy and the team have helped quite a few divisions around the world, and Gordy actually did a bit of a quick prototype on one of our ideas moving forward with the British Region Convention a few weeks ago. So that's going to be something along the lines of a build and take model clinic, something hands-on. So we'll just see how that progresses, because I think that's also a way forward to help people like me and the younger generation that is very technically driven via computers. They can get a hands-on experience rather than going to a club with a whole heap of old boys from the golf club that don't want to share the techniques and stuff, or listen to new ways of doing it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's where I suppose the division, not the division, the NMRA's got a little bit of a bad rap, probably unfairly to a certain degree, in some regards. That they is a bit of an old stifly boys club, but I think you're right. To get the youngsters into this hobby, it's got everything. We're now showing how the technology can be put into it. So that's one tick for the youngsters. Obviously, something tactile we can build with our hands. So I think the overall package from model railroading moving forward is quite exciting, and because I don't think the X program's going anywhere soon. I think it's always going to be there. There's always going to be someone that has the need for it, even if it's elder gentlemen or ladies that can't get to their meets, but they can hop online and still watch some clinics or some shows or virtual layout tours or whatever's on offer.
Yeah, correct.
So, okay. So another big thing that I think is, I honestly think this is probably the way forward. Is probably one of the biggest things in model railroading in a long time, which I call it virtual operations. I think you guys call it remote operations. And obviously it's come out of the X program as well, the technology there, the current climate we're in with COVID and the like. So you able to see those photos I've got up there, Brad?
Yeah, I can see those. Yeah.
So the one on the right hand side is one obviously we're looking at. So talk us through what is basically remote operations. Well,
okay. Well, basically, remote operations isn't really something that's new this year. You've got to look back 10 years ago. People were doing remote dispatch, which was the start of it. What we've probably looked at in the last 12 months is train control, layout control, everything remotely based on what we can and can't do movement-wise. So remote ops is now literally the real thing of operations in-house, now remotely done over the internet.
Yeah.
No different, no extras. It's just a different avenue of how to connect to the layout.
Yeah, sure. So obviously that the photo we got up there is of Gordy's dispatch of, I think it's your layout. Is that correct?
That's correct. So back in June, me and Gordy had a bit of a run-in of who was going to build the layout and who was going to control it, each other's trains first. I had started laying track, and he had just started some bench work, and it progressed pretty quick to bragging rights nearly every second night that we're talking of, hey, where we're at and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it moved on really quick. That's my layout out of JMRI in the top, and down the bottom is an IP camera on my layout room network that he could then see the train. So that progressed pretty quick. He could log in via IP address at that stage and control the train, honk the horn with virtually no lag from all the way from Orkney, which is just kind of mind-blowing now when I look back at it. Someone that's halfway around the world and out on an island with 300 people can do that.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? So obviously you've since written a nice little how-to guide, I suppose, with how to put JMRI together, how to set it up for NMRA. So I will, if you're happy, I can link to that below. It's a PDF document that you put together that I've read. I'm a train controller user, so we have a little bit similar, but I don't think it interfaces in quite as nicely as what JMRI does, unfortunately. So I've since seen that, who is it? There's a gentleman who uses both and integrates them, so I might have to have a chat with how he does it. His name eludes me right now, but I'll get to that shortly. So sorry, you were going to say?
Yes, you're definitely right. JMRI makes this really easy, and throw that article up there, and it's a PDF link. That's stage one of the process.
Yeah, so I've got to a point with mine, because Train Controller runs an IP server very similar. So I have been able to get people to come in remotely to control the layout. So that's step number one. So now I'm just sort of looking at how the camera side of things work and how I might be able to introduce JMRI to a pure dispatch point of view. I think is probably what I'm going to look at, but might be just a few extra links to the cog. But it's definitely something looking forward to. Love your input when I get it up and running properly, that's for sure. So
yeah, definitely. Like I said, JMRI makes it really easy. Like that picture that you've just brought up there now is the actual web server out of JMRI for my layout. And all I've done is pretty much add extra web pages into that for the video feeds and stuff like that. Yeah. I use Webby as a crew lounge, for a virtual crew lounge for anyone that wants to join in and stuff like that, so we can have a bit of a chat and whatnot pre and after operations.
Nice.
So it's all relatively easy. If a bloke that's a builder, or a chippy as Gordy calls me out in the sticks here in Australia, can do it, anyone that can find their way around a computer can sort of do this thing now.
Yeah. And obviously you probably watched, I'm sure, Silicon Valley, and Dave Aberleys are doing some great work in this space as well. I just watched Silicon Valley again last night because I was toying around with the video feed with a Raspberry Pi and how I was going to integrate all that into things. And
definitely.
So
I've watched Dave do his little live stream. I had the chance to try to operate it, but we had a few internet connection problems here due to time frames and things like that.
Sure.
Internet's not always the best here in Australia.
No,
and
right.
I was grateful enough actually to be a controller of a train on Silicon Valley last night.
Oh, nice. Seems like a really lovely layout and good bunch of blokes. It's definitely, we're meant to be in the United States right now, but obviously due to current climate, we're not to be over there. So I might reach out to them definitely, because we're doing a fair bit of the West Coast. So I might head down to San Jose, I think, and see what we can rustle up down there. That'd be great. So
definitely great blokes. So
where do you think the remote ops is going? Do you it's as I likened it before with the X Factor. It's just different, isn't it? So there's still going to be blokes that need to be layout side to.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To troubleshoot, to basically be.
You're still going to need a conductor there or a brakeman there. You're never going to get away from that. I don't think the technology is there quite yet for the video input to get it there. So I think if you take a layout like mine where, like I said, we could have potentially 6 trains or 6 sets of operators, if we break that down into taking 12 people, so you'll have 6 remote engine drivers, and then 6 brakemen, switchmen, whatever your terminology wants to refer to them here in-house, which is sort of going to max it out. But that gives you 12 guys at an operation night. So it's got the ability there.
Yeah, definitely. So for us fledgling people that are getting into this side of things, are you running sort of like the Silicon Valley do, running the camera on a car, or are you sort of all your more remote type rail fanning position cameras? Is that IP type cameras?
Look, me and Martin have talked about this in great depth, and we're looking at more of the rail fanning type cameras. After using the train last night with Silicon Valley, once the technology changes and you can get a more fluid video output, I think that might have some advantages. My biggest concern is if you're an operator of a train, real life, and you've got 100 coal cars and you've got to send your brakeman down to the end, you can't see where he is. So after the first car, it's kind of irrelevant. And I think that's where the rail fanning aspect really helps the remote operations. It makes the communication all that much better.
Yeah, okay. Because I was sort of looking at, I'm toying with the idea of a camera car, but I think I'm going to go your way, is more having a rail fan type cameras, because it serves 2 purposes. When you're sort of not running the layout like this, you can still use it, particularly in hidden sidings. I've got 3 staging areas that are all hidden, so that obviously can be used for that side of things as well. So that's great. So so for someone starting out in this, so we'll start with the JMRI. We won't confuse people with train controller. Where do you, what's the best place to start? Obviously, to get the layout so you can actually see the layout remotely. Is that the best place to start, or did you start with the camera side of things first, or how did you start your journey with remote ops?
Okay, so my journey started with knowing JMRI pretty much in and out of designing a layout panel, and then I started with a smartphone and engine driver as a throttle, and that sort of then grew further onto then, okay, how can I access this via a web page onto tablets around the layout? So this was all on a local network at that stage, and that's how I pretty much got a lot of the kinks out. And then from that stage, I exposed the panels and the throttles to the world, and then I started to implement the cameras after that. As you know, here in Australia, we have dynamic IP addresses, so I found that as a bit of a stumbling block of how to get everything out to the world without too many troubles of having it change over on me. Once I got over that, the IP cameras then came pretty easy and can flow. There's a lot of work with the IP cameras of setting those up onto your local network, onto a web page, and then broadcasting that web page out via a dynamic IP address. It's kind of hard.
That's the bit I've yet to do yet. I've been able to, as I said, the train controller already, I use the IP to run my switchboards. That's how I do it. I monitor all soft switchboards, and it all run via the internal, the LAN network or wirelessly. But I've been able to go outside and then go on like the 4G networks or the mobile network and be able to control it that way by port forwarding and getting in that way. And then I'm just slowly stepping along and being able to control trains that way. And then, so obviously now I'm looking at the camera side of things, which is, I think it's just one of the most exciting things that I've done in a long time in this hobby.
Exactly. I think the camera thing's what's going to really blow our mind. Martin's playing around with some ESP32 cameras, which are sort of a bit bigger than the size of your thumbnail. And they put out a really good picture. I also was only reading about a month ago, so I think it's Ryko or something like that have released a camera in one of their locomotives. So it's going to change, and it's going to change quick. I look at it as like the next sound, as DCC sound. It's going to be the next thing.
Yeah,
really,
no,
cameras and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I run the Roko's Z21 system, and they've had cameras in them for a little while. I don't know how good. I've never had one that's had a camera in it, but my understanding is they're getting smaller and smaller and better, and whether I'm hoping they've got that IP functionality, I suppose, to it to a certain degree, because it buzzes through to your tablet on the app anyway. So no, that's great. So for your remote ops, we sort of briefly talked around it. Where next for you, I suppose? What are you trying to hone in on? Trying to really develop to get the system nice and neat.
Well, I think it's ironing out all these kinks. The cameras are probably my biggest kink at the moment. Finding something that's usable. It's nothing worse or off-putting for an operator to sit there and watch a 420 or 480 or a 320p camera that's glitchy and carries on. It just really puts a bit of a sour taste in your mouth on the remote ops, and kind of turns a lot of people off. So I'm trying to look at a 720 or a 1080p, if possible, solution for that. Bandwidth could be my come for on that.
The next thing I was going to ask.
Yeah, especially with some of the commercial grade stuff, I might be looking at some industrial network system to help with that if need be. I think from an internet point of view of putting that out, I'll be fine. I've got one of the quicker speed internets here in Australia, so that should be okay. Yeah. But I think it's the actual hardware side of that network that could be my drawback at the moment.
Are you, just out of interest, are you wired NBN where you are, like for your network, or you use something like you got like me? I've got Wi-Fi version of the NBN because just purely where I am. So
yeah, so I've got a product which is wired to the curb,
right?
And I'm just lucky enough that my curb's only about 2 meters from my layout room. So conveniently, when NBN came on here, I moved everything down into the layout room. So I've got literally 2 meters of cable from the curb into the house, and then another 2 meters until it hits the layout. So
nice.
I've got pretty good speed.
Yeah, okay. Because unfortunately I'm only getting maybe 35 download and about 10 up. So that's as quick as mine's getting. So
I pretty much maxed out. I've got the top speed, and I max it out on all the speed tests. So I'm getting 100 down and somewhere between 35 to 45 up.
Yeah, nice. So you're getting probably double, at least over double. So that's going to be my biggest issue. I think I'm not going to get the quality of camera there at this point until they change the technology for my internet, I'm assuming. So when they go to a 5G product, at some stage they will, out in the boondocks here. But it's going to work with what you got. So some people don't even have what I've got. So, but anyway, all right, Brad, thanks so much for taking time away from the family this evening. I had a good old chat about various different things. I'd definitely like to keep in contact with you about a few things, definitely. So thanks again for chatting with me at Motorola Techniques tonight.
Thanks, Daz. It's been great, and like I said, this sort of communication and shows are the way forward for the hobby. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.